We are joined by Times Union's own Pete Iorizzo. Pete, it's Tom Gazlowski. Guys, it's Chris Iorizzo filling in. Good morning, and how are you?
Good morning, guys. How's it going?
What's up, Pete?
We're all doing well here. Well, let's start with Dion Lewis, Capital Region's own big performance against the Houston Texans. What did you make of that performance by Dion Lewis?
I thought it's hard not to be happy for the guy, right? After everything he's been through and all the injuries. I thought it was great to see him. I think there were a lot of people when he got hurt the first time wondering if, well, that was it for Dion Lewis. It was going to be, 3 games where he looked like an emerging star, and that'd be the last we'd ever hear of him. But obviously that's not the case. So, good for him.
I asked Chris earlier, and I know the game ends up being an 18-point victory for the Patriots, but Dion Lewis, did he avoid the Patriots maybe being the victim to one of the biggest upsets in postseason history if Houston had pulled off that win?
Well, yeah, in fairness, he was almost the cause of it, too.
True.
You take into account the fumble on the kickoff. That was about the only point in the game that I thought the Patriots might be in trouble. But, yeah, I off the top of my head, it's hard to think of a bigger NFL playoff upset in recent history than if Houston had pulled that off yesterday. But what was the line of that game? What was it, like 16, 17?
Right around there, 16.5, 17, depending on what investment you were looking at. Say it like that. But Patriots do pull off that win. Let's swing it over to the NFC. Chris, of course, is happy today. His Green Bay Packers pull off the win over the Dallas Cowboys. Aaron Rodgers in the play at the end of the game. Walk us through what Pete Iorizzo was doing during that play, the emotions, because Chris and I did it earlier, and we were all over the place during that final play that sets up the game-winning field goal.
I was actually, honestly, I was sort of only half paying attention because probably like a lot of people, I just thought he's just going to heave it down the field here, and he's not going to be able to reach the end zone anyway. So, I was basically, I'd actually stood up and I was kind of standing away from my TV just with one eye on it just to make sure nothing crazy happened. And, of course, something crazy did happen. But probably like most of America, I was braced for overtime at that point.
Pete, we know the championship game set up here. What is the Super Bowl matchup you want to see?
Let's see. What would I want to see, or what do I think it's going to be?
What do you want to see?
Probably best for the NFL would be Packers Patriots, right? That would probably be the sexiest matchup that you could imagine. But it's nice to see a new team in there if the Falcons were able to win this weekend. I actually think Pittsburgh and New England sets up an interesting game. To me, the Steelers have I know it's difficult to win 2 games like that on the road, back-to-back weekends, but to me, the Steelers are a team that's well built to pull off an upset on the road. They can run the ball, they can get after the quarterback. Maybe that'll be an interesting AFC Championship game.
Yeah. Pete Iorizzo joining us here from the Times Union. It's Gals. It's Chris Iorizzo filling in for Roger Weil and Zach Bye here on Big Board Sports. And Pete, let's shift it over to the Siena Saints men's basketball program. For those that may not know, talk a little bit about discussing the Nico Claret situation, what's happened with his future with the Saints.
Good question. I think it's very much to be determined at this point. I don't think anybody would be shocked if the indefinite leave just becomes a permanent leave. I definitely think there's questions about whether or not you'll see him back in the program or not. The timing of it, I thought was surprising only because, just a couple weeks ago he hit that big shot against St. Peter's, and I thought, well, geez, maybe that's the moment that's finally going to get Claret going. He came off the bench in that game, and I think that is or was the right role for him to be sort of that scorer off the bench. I thought maybe they finally figured it out with him, and then the bizarre jewelry thing happens the next game, and Jimmy Passos is talking about his commitment to the program. To me, that's never good when you're talking about a guy and wondering if he's fully committed to the program, not when you're talking about Division I basketball. So to me, it very much remains to be seen whether you'll ever see him back in a Siena uniform again. But frankly, I'm not sure how much it hurts him the rest of the year because he hasn't been playing that well. If you're going to be a quote unquote volume shooter and be shooting 30%, that doesn't help your team very much. So, in terms of just from a basketball standpoint, it's hard to say that that's a huge loss for Siena.
Yeah, it's a strange addition by subtraction, and it's kind of hard to quantify right away because you see what he's averaging, 12.5 points per game. But you're right, Pete. He's shooting 36% this season, and he is a volume shooter. He's a very talented basketball player, but it just didn't ever seem to fit. And I don't know exactly what the relationship was between Nico and some of the seniors on this team, but it just didn't seem to mesh, and I think they're a better team without him. Now, that said, he can go out somewhere else and have success. I think this version of Siena's team is better without Nico Clarith, and they won their third in a row yesterday, and essentially won the game before that without him. He only played 3 minutes. So we may be seeing something here of, a turnaround and maybe a different embrace of identity with this team.
Yeah, and I agree. I think you're right. When you have 4 seniors on a team, who obviously you're talking about their senior years and the end of their career and their last chance to go to the NCAA tournament, it would not surprise me if they're extremely bothered by the fact that you have a guy on the roster who's quote unquote not all in.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Even if it's not quite addition by subtraction, to me it's at least not a huge factor not having him the rest of the way.
Pete Iorizzo joins us here from the Times Union. It's Giles and Chris Honorano filling in on Big Board Sports. And Siena's won 3 in a row, but Albany's lost 3 in a row. What's happened with the Great Danes now that they've hit conference play? Any reason to be concerned?
Yeah, good question. An interesting game, I think, for Albany today. It really does seem like they need to go down there and get a win, because they're at the point where they need to start putting some wins together. They're going to be looking at playing the America East tournament on the road. Certainly not 0-3. Obviously, it's not a given that they're going to be one of the top 4 teams.
Yeah, I agree, Pete. And UMBC, Albany has won 14 of the last 15 matchups. I mean, they've controlled this series over the last 8 years. But this is by no means a foregone conclusion that, we're just going to go to Baltimore and win today. UMBC's 12-5 this year. They're 3-1 in the conference and an 0-4 start. I know everybody says, you just need to be playing well by the time you hit March. But Pete, I think your point is right on. You at least have to put yourself in position to then go play well in March. And we haven't seen that from Albany here. If they go to 0-4, Pete, I mean, are we kind of turning the page and maybe saying, Albany is a year away?
Yeah, I always think that's dangerous to say we'll just wait till next year. To me, they look a little like Siena did a couple of weeks ago, where you're trying to figure out what the various roles are. Is where does everybody fit in on that team? Who's going to come off the bench and be the 6th and 7th. And, who's going to be the consistent scorer to go with Joe Cremo. And obviously that's a team that's been sort of besieged by injuries too, which obviously doesn't help.
And Pete's Cuse are back and doing some work in the ACC.
The Syracuse
there.
Orange making a couple of wins there.
Yeah.
Pete, we're piecing something together a bit out of Central New York.
Yeah, it was funny. A couple of weeks ago, I looked at the score of the Pitt game. I think I was at Times Union Center for an event that it was 40-12 at halftime. Around halftime. It's got to be an error on my phone.
Yeah. Carolina, Notre Dame this week though for the Cuse could be tough, both on the road.
Yeah, that is a difficult trip. It just does not look like this is going to be a big year for the Orange.
14.5-point underdogs, Pete. I'm okay with the Orange being a 14.5-point underdog. They're going to shock the world tonight. Take down the Tar Heels.
It's not very often when the Orange are a 14.
Yeah, right.
That's very true. Pete Iorizzo from the Times Union. Appreciate your time
Thanks,
this morning.
Pete.
We'll talk again next week.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a good one.